Hey, Professor Homa here. Welcome to Angus Steaks Part 2. And here's the ideas that I came up with. And I'm looking at them from far away because that's how I want to see them. And these were the sketches that I had. These were the 3 ideas I came up with, and they don't look bad. As far as the color, we worked with black and we picked out a PMS color. And I'll show you how to do that right off the bat. The way we do that is, first of all, you pick a color from the Pantone Color Swatches book. Here's a Pantone Color Swatches book right here. And it's kind of like a paint swatches book where you kind of pick out a particular ink color. And that's the one you're going to use because you need to find something that's going to look the way color would look in print, either on paper or on whatever material it has to be on. You can't go by the computer to figure out how a certain red would look. So you have to pick out a certain color of how it's going to be in the end. Then whatever it looks like on different computers, that's what it is, but at least you know what it's going to look like on paper. And that's what Pantone inks do. They help you pick out one certain ink, and the book shows what it's supposed to look like on paper, either coated or uncoated, meaning it's either a glossy paper or a not glossy paper. So you're going to use that PMS book first, and then when you get a color, we chose PMS, I forget which one we chose. PMS, here it is, 185. So we chose PMS 185. Somebody just picked that out of the book and said, let's use that, so we used it. Now it's in here in my color swatchers. How did I get it in there? And also one thing to be aware of is that it's a spot color, meaning it doesn't mix CMYK inks together the way another color would. If I go back to my swatches and I pick another color, here's another red, and then I go to swatches, or I go to color, you can see there's the sliders of these colors. And you know, they're mixing up to make a red. We're not. We're going to use an ink to make a red. So actually, when you make this document, you're going to make sure that you go File New when you start it. When you go File New for your document in Illustrator, make sure that when you go Print, that you go down in Advanced here, and you're going to choose CMYK, because then when you use black, you're going to use 100% K, which is black. You're not going to have a mix. Black is going to be black ink, and then we're going to pick a PMS red ink. So that's what we did. That's why you can see we're in CMYK here. And other times you might be in RGB, but we're going to work in CMYK. And then to bring in that ink, we already brought it in, but where you would bring it in is if you went to Window and went all the way down to Swatch Libraries, and then you got to dig in here. You got to hold your mouse right. Swatch Libraries, and then go up to Color Books. And then again, there's a whole bunch of color books, and the one we're using is Pantone. You would either use solid uncoated or coated. Coated just means how it shows on coated stock. Probably coated's fine because we want to see what things look like on coated stock, because for restaurants a lot of stuff's going to be on coated stock, but it could vary. It could be on menus that are laminated, it could be on napkins, it could be anything. So if it was on letterhead and envelopes, we would choose the solid uncoated. So I'll use that for now. Now to get your color, that just brings up kind of the palette. The best thing to do, if you know you're going to use 185, if you have access to a book to look at, just type in 185 and it'll choose the color, and then click on it again. Now I'm going to choose another one just so you can see. I'm going to choose 200. That's the one the school uses, or I should just put in 200. There's 200, and if you click on it, it adds it to your swatches. So then you could close this. You don't need that color books. If you go to your swatches there, I now have 200 here. So if I wanted to change this thing, and I'll zoom into my logos here and scroll up a little bit. So if I wanted to change this to 200, I'll make that 200. And actually, you got to be careful. It only made the stroke. And I actually don't want a stroke. So I'll go over here and choose the 200. And you can see that's a little deeper red, which is fine. Now you could mess around when you're trying out with just some colors there. But again, for this, we wanted to make sure that we were using a Pantone color. Even the black, when we use black here, when I choose this black, it's going to be a Pantone black. Here it is down here. If I double click on it, you see it's only K. It's only using the black channel. It's not using cyan ink, magenta, yellow. It's only using black. Sometimes you'll see black that has different sliders in here. That's called a rich black. That means it's using all the colors, but we're not. We're just using a solid black and then a solid red. And the solid red we're using is 185. So I'll go back and put this at 185. So that's how we picked our color. And again, you got to be careful because when I just click on that, it uses this thing. I'll make it no stroke and bring this to the front, and then I'll choose. Probably easier to go over here and choose the color, and I'll put it back to the 185, and that's the way it is. So again, I started this out. Again, this is separate and this is separate. This is kind of a nice font. This font is something I downloaded. It wasn't something I had on my computer. It's called Sign Painter House Script. And it was kind of a nice font. And it looked nice with this real slab serif looking font here. You know, slab serif, you know, kind of that Western kind of look. They have a nice combination together. If something looks like a logo already before you even add an icon, that, you know, that's what you want to go for. You want it to look as clean as possible. I don't need horns here. I put horns and a nose. And again, I actually, okay, let me just show you the horns and nose here. And again, nothing really spectacular. I made a knife here on this one, and this one was just an oval. So let me just mention how I made the horns. I just use circles. I just use ellipses, and you could kind of do one at a time. So I'll just option drag, and I'll get one horn here. And what I'm looking at is this shape here, this area in here. So I'm going to highlight these and do a minus front. That's a good way to kind of chop things off. I'll go to Pathfinder, do minus front. And you can see now I have like this moon thing. Now you could use this thing, but I'm going to do one. I'm going to take a rectangle, and I'm going to chop it again. And you don't have to chop it. You know, you could put it on an angle. You could rotate this a little if you wanted a little angle there, and chop it like that. And you can see that's what I'm looking for, the horn. So I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to chop it. And make sure you don't highlight anything else. Don't get any other shape in there. Just two overlapping closed shapes. I'll do minus front, and there I kind of have a horn shape. And if you had to change this, you could go in here with your, you know, or even open it up. I mentioned opening up. You could delete that segment and kind of make an open horn like that. And then you can copy this, however you do this, or you could flip it. You could use this flip it on its vertical axis. That means like a pole, wrap it around a pole and hit copy, and then you have two. There you got two horns to work with. You don't need much more than that. And you can make other shapes from that. You know, I could put this above here, put little horns above there and a little horn above there, and there I got a logo. Probably make them a little smaller, and there I have a logo starting over there. And they have fills on them. Let me take out their fills so they're see-through, and that's the idea there. So it kind of, and again, open, and they're probably too big right now. So how did I do this thing? And I'll break this apart just to kind of look at it. I'll move the bottom part here. I made this shape. I mean, how did I get that? It looks like a loaf of bread that got squashed. What I actually did was take two ovals. And again, if you get a little practice with these things, we do these in computer graphics, but you know, making simple shapes kind of help here too. I kind of made like almost like a upside down snowman with ovals. And I kind of made this thing here. Now it's going to look weird at first. And if you need to align them, you could highlight them both and you'll get align tools up there. And I could align them on center. And there's my two align tools. And I'm going to unite them. I don't think we did that yet, but I'm going to go to Pathfinder and make them join together. And you might say, well, that doesn't look like that. How did you get it to look like that? Well, if I zoom in here real tight, what I'm going to do is with my anchor point, I'm going to go up here, click on this. Now I can hit delete. If I hit delete, it's going to wipe it out. I don't want to do that. To actually delete an anchor point, which is what I want to do here, you would use underneath here, this tool, there's a delete anchor point tool. I could go here and delete that point, and I could go over here and delete this point. Then you could use your white arrow and use these arrows a little bit and just kind of smooth it out a little. Getting that arrow there, or getting that handle. And that's what I did. Sometimes you could chop this in half and flip it around so you get it perfectly symmetrical. But that's all I did. I just put in some nostrils, some oval nostrils, flipped them around so they were just black, and rotated them a little bit. And then made a copy, like a mirrored copy. So if I go on this corner here outside, sometimes it's hard to get to. And there's one nostril, and then I'll copy it. And I could flip it around after I copy it too. You could flip it during the copy, or I could hit this reflect tool and just say OK, and that flips it around, and then I could kind of move it into place. So there I have my nostrils. And then for the time being, I just took a rectangle and filled it with white and just used it to cover it up. And then you could even group this. You could go object group so they work together. And I'll zoom out here, and that's how I got that little snout that went under here. And remember, you can always do the, you know, it's in front of it right now. You could do object arrange send to back and move the snout down a little bit. And if I click off it, there's kind of what I was doing. Actually, I like that one a little better with the bigger snout. But anyway, Other logos I worked with this Angus. Now how I did this, I used an effect called warp. I typed the type, and then I went to arc, and actually I should go to the appearance palette because I already have the effect on it. It's an appearance. It doesn't make any sense. You think there should be an effects palette, but they have an appearance palette, and if I go into the arc, this is what it did. And you can see if I preview, I could preview it and move it around. You can see what I did. Here's putting it back to 0. It makes it straight, and I kind of did this. I kind of used this arc and kind of made this arc type. I don't remember exactly which way I had it, but something like that. So I hit OK. And I did it reversed on the bottom, and then I traced over a little bowl that, just like I was talking about the chicken, traced over a little bowl here, put an outline on it, and that's how I got my bowl. And also one other thing to point out with outlines, so that you're not putting thick outlines on, and I'll mention it with this. I'll go up here to this Angus, and normally if I put a stroke on here, I'll put a black stroke on it. And there it is. And normally if you go thicker with the stroke, you see what's happening. The stroke is kind of going direct, it's crowding in. It's not behind it. So I'm going to put the stroke, matter of fact, I'm going to turn the stroke off. And what I'm going to do is, you could do this right from the appearance palette. This is a pretty neat, I just learned this last year. You could go here and add a stroke down here, and it's a new stroke. And you could go there and add it. And I'm going to even go to fill, and I'm going to choose my red color. You might say, well, why do you add a fill? You already have a fill. I'm going to fill it again. That means I can drag this below here. I'll stretch this out a little. I could drag my stroke below the fill. Okay, you might say, why would you do that? Well, if I click on my stroke and click up here, I can make the stroke thicker. You can see I'm making it thicker without actually, it's keeping the font the same thickness. Let me select this. There, now I'll add my stroke. There it is. Now I'll make it white. Okay, and I'll drag it up above the other one. Now why would I do that? Well, then I can make it smaller, and it could form like a line in between. It could form like a little buffer, which is kind of an interesting look. So I can move this thing up a little bit. That multiple stroke thing, that helps, especially when you put it on different if you put it on shirts or you put it on hats. This can be a buffer. You could switch these around depending on what kind of material color it goes on, what kind of paper it goes on, if it goes on menus, it goes over pictures. Using those little strokes outside of that's kind of a neat effect sometimes, and it makes things really stand out and bold. So anyway, the logo I worked on here was very simple, and I just kind of threw together three ideas from my sketches. I used that Pantone color, and the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put them on items, and I'll show you that next.